What's going on in Bangladesh is totally unacceptable, and nobody can imagine really what the conditions are in the ground, because today is the fifth day, no internet, and law enforcement agency got the privilege shoot on site. So the order they given by the prime minister. So they are shooting people. Around 300 plus students have been killed by the regime, and the situation is unthinkable and not even describable. What a horrific situation in Bangladesh. But students, they are not afraid. They are not going back. The government is trying to capitalize the so-called court order. Now they are saying 93% they will accept as merit basis, but it's not going to work because already they took hundreds of lives. They will not compromise with this blood. So they are tailing, and now so far we are learning from the media and from the ground in different way. And I'm asking question as I'm doing. As for my reporting part, I asked that question even this morning at noon briefing, and one of my colleagues asked that, and what is even doing as many rights organizations, including Professor Muhammad Yunus, Nobel laureate, he asking to the UN and the international community to act immediately.
Edie.
Thank you, Steph. Bangladesh.
Yes.
Does the Secretary General have any comment on the latest violence and also on the sentencing of Bangladeshis in the United Arab Emirates for protesting in support of the young people in Bangladesh?
Sure, a couple of things. The Secretary General remains very deeply concerned about the violence that we've seen in Bangladesh, which more than 100 people have been killed and thousands more injured. We've seen also that yesterday the Supreme Court of Bangladesh decision on the quotas for the civil service jobs, which was at the part of the issues regarding the protests. He also saw the decision by the Bangladeshi student groups to suspend protests for 48 hours. He very much hopes that both these decisions will help create a conducive environment for dialogue. He urges all sides to avoid violence and negotiate in good faith with a view towards resolving all existing disagreements. Also want to add that we urge the authorities to ensure the protection and safety of all protesters and to create an environment where the rights to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly can be freely exercised. And he calls for all acts of violence to be investigated promptly, transparently, and impartially, and for those responsible held to account. The one thing I do want to add, because we've seen our colleagues on the ground in Bangladesh have seen reports of disturbing reports of UN-marked vehicles that may have been used during the developments we've seen in Bangladesh over the last few days. It's important for us to stress that UN troop and police contributing countries are to use UN insignia and equipment marked with this insignia only when they are performing mandated tasks as part of a UN peacekeeping or UN political mission, and within the context of the deployment of any UN mission. Our serious concern in this regard has been conveyed to the relevant authorities in Bangladesh by our colleagues.
And the sentencing.
Oh yes, I think we've seen the disturbing reports of very harsh sentences being meted out. As we do everywhere else, we feel that it is very important for people to have the right to express themselves freely and peacefully without fear of arrest or worse. Mushfiq.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you. My colleague Adi already asked the question that you answered. My simple question is, are you relying on the current regime to resolve the issues, those who are not hesitating to killing innocent peoples, and death toll crossed hundreds. Nobody knows. Internet shut down. And the situation is the massive crackdown and using, as you said, APC vehicle. So an international community, international rights organization, including Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus, urged the UN and the international community to act promptly to rescue the Bangladeshi people and their rights.
They will be, I think we have been very forceful in expressing the Secretary General opinion. As always, there will need to be accountability. We very much hope that whether it's the government or the side of the students, use this, the time given, the space in a sense created by the Supreme Court decision, by the decision of the students not to demonstrate for 48 hours, to engage in a dialogue and to create an environment that is conducive to such a dialogue. But we will continue to monitor the situation very closely.
Even say they are closely monitoring the situation. UN Secretary General very much firm his commitment to uphold the rights, and he condemned the violence and the attack by the regime, by the security forces, and he mentioned that hundreds lives has been lost and more than hundreds killed and thousands injured. And spokesperson also mentioned that Bangladesh security forces using UN marked vehicle and for the control, for the crowd control, which is very alarming, because this is allocating for the UN security, UN peacekeeping forces, those who will deploy peacekeeping mission. This is not for the using in Dhaka to control crowd and to shoot the students. So he says it's very alarming and it's very disturbing. They conveyed their concern to the authority, and they are asking for accountability. Who are they? Why they are using this UN marked vehicle and armored vehicle in Dhaka? Violence taking place in Bangladesh obviously is they are condemning, and I asked that question at the State Department.
Thank you, Matt. Massive killings going on in Bangladesh, as you know. Bangladesh security forces given shot on sight, and nobody knows the death toll. Internet shutdowns for 50 days today, and its death toll crosses hundreds. And government is using their Supreme Court, Supreme Court, to control the voices of the students. So it's just an unthinkable situation. And I saw the many members of the Congress, human rights organization, asking to and expressing their solidarity with the student movement. Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus urged the world leaders, including US and United Nations, to act promptly to rescue the Bangladeshi people and the democratic rights. So what is your comment on this?
So we are closely following developments in Bangladesh. We continue to call for calm and de-escalation. We condemn all recent acts of violence in Bangladesh and reiterate our unwavering support for peaceful assembly. In addition, we remain deeply concerned by reports of ongoing telecommunications disruptions across the country, which limit the ability of people in Bangladesh, including American citizens, to access critical information. We call on the government to restore internet service. We condemn the reported shoot-on-sight orders that have been given and call for those to be rescinded. And of course, I would just as a final thought with respect to the situation, reiterate that media freedom is an essential building block of a thriving democracy. It is essential that journalists in Bangladesh, as is true everywhere in the world, be able to function freely.
One thing is around
no interruptions, just
around,
one at a time.
The Bangladeshi people are protesting everywhere in the world, in front of the State Department, White House, Times Square. But the UAE, when they are protesting in the Dubai, some places in UAE, they sentenced 57 Bangladeshi for 11 years. Why they are protesting against their own government? So what is your comment? And finally, do you rely on Bangladesh regime as you are calling and urging they will entertain your call and urge? As we see in last 15 years, Bangladesh is run by an authoritarian regime, and they are trying to keep their power by any means using the security forces.
So with respect to the first question, I wasn't aware of that report, so I'm reluctant to comment on it, as always the case when I don't have perfect information here. But when it comes to the government in Bangladesh, it's a government with which we've worked on a number of issues, but we also make clear when we have concerns, as I believe I just did.
One follow-up.
Go ahead.
That what you are doing, you are calling, urging, but they are not entertaining your calls. They are doing their own course killing people. So what you will do, I saw many tweets from the congressmen, from the rights groups, that they are expressing solidarity with the student protest. This is no more with only quota protest. Now it's more larger. People want their rights back. So they are fighting to establish their rights, voting rights, human rights, fundamental rights, freedom of press, freedom of assembly. So everything's are absent in Bangladesh for a long time. As you know, the Sheikh Hasina is in power more than 1.5 decades, and with abolishing all the rights, and country is running in an authoritarian manner. So we have to wait to see the end, but it will not end easily, because the whole country is affected and the regime is trying to keep the power by any means. And so it will not work in a democratic country, because democracy lover people will try to establish their democratic rights. So this is the battle between democracy and autocracy. Let's see who will win.